Well, good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for our 2020 DLP 2.0 virtual parent orientation for our middle school. We're so glad that you are joining us tonight, and this is a new venue for us, but we hope that our time together will be very beneficial. I want to say to you all that we are grateful for what we anticipate will be a wonderful school year. So welcome to our 7th grade families. Welcome to our new families. And I want to just say that tonight is intended to give a little bit more of an understanding of how we anticipate starting the school year. Obviously, we've gone through a number of changes over the course of the summer, and we anticipate maybe even 1 or 2 more changes before the school year starts. Hopefully not. Hopefully the plan that we have in place is going to be what we start with in just less than a week, but who really knows at this point? And so we're just going to remain agile, remain informed, and tonight we want to give you our plan and just help you understand how the school year is going to begin. So again, welcome to our new families. And I wanted to say to our new 7th grade families as well that you will be receiving a separate new parent orientation video that will feature myself and the administrative team at the middle school, and also have an introductory introductory video from your core teachers kind of explaining and introducing themselves, explaining their class, so that you can understand a little bit more how things operate. I'm going to touch on some nuances that are part of our middle school program, but I want to be sensitive to our time tonight and allow for us to get to those things that are really more COVID-19 related. So we'll be videoing that regular new 7th grade and new family orientation for our middle schools and then sending that out to you before school starts. So be looking for that as well. So in terms of what we're going to be talking about tonight and our guiding principles that I've shared before, we want to just be reminded that throughout the whole COVID-19 process, we've established these 4 guiding principles, and I want us to be reminded of those tonight because that'll really help inform our direction tonight. First of all, we want to be reminded that we want to honor God as we honor the authority. So we have been mindful to do our due diligence and look to what the governing, either local or state, have stated in terms of their guidance and recommendations. And so we recognize that we want to, as an institution, honor God by the way that we respond appropriately and thoughtfully in the way that we welcome back families to our school and how we operate our educational program beginning next week. Also, just a part of our the fabric of our program is the safety that we promote. It's been a part of our program for so many years, and thinking through just the physical safety, the emotional safety, and the spiritual safety of students. And now with this new threat of this virus and understanding the virus and maintaining just a cleanliness and a renewed sense of how we keep our staff and our students safe. So promoting safety is a part of our guiding principles as well. And then in ensuring that we're always improving, we're looking back to what we did in the past, even with how strong our middle school DLP was in the spring. We know that there are areas to fine tune and to be improving what we've already put forth. And so evaluating those programs and making necessary adjustments to achieve our last guiding principle, which is to maintain excellence and allow for what parents and students have come to know as they've been at Legacy as an excellent program. They see that continued at Legacy Middle School, whether we're at a distance or we're on campus. So those are our 4 guiding principles as we've thought about rolling out our plan and responding to this COVID-19 and the guidance that we have. We can really get tossed here and there, and I know we've all sort of felt that in many ways, but we wanted to always be reminded and recentered on the mission of the school and what the vision would look like for this next school year. And so going back to those guiding principles as we've thought through this school year. So the topics that we're going to cover tonight are the health and safety of our program, how we're approaching just maintaining a healthy and safe environment, and the protocols and the procedures that we have in place. how we're approaching and handling our child care. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about DLP 2.0 and some of the changes that you'll see. And then Discovery Camp, how we're viewing that at our middle school program. And then a few other things that we'll be talking about is just an update on our reopening plan, where we are in terms of looking ahead to when we will be able to do a full reopen. Additional helpful information that doesn't really fit into any sort of specific category, but I think that'll be helpful for you to have as well. And then we'll finish our time with a Q&A, and hopefully you'll be able to get on and ask some questions, and we'll be able to provide some clarity for that. So in regards to our health and safety, I want to say from the start, the understanding that I want all of us to have is just in regards to the question of where are we getting our information, where are we looking to for direction and guidance. And I want to just remind us that the reopening plan that we've distributed to you and the protocols and procedures that we've put in place don't just come from the administrative team thinking through how we might approach these things solely, but there are governing authorities and resources and sources that we look to. And the first would be the CDC. And these resources and sources are going to be very familiar to you as a citizen, as a parent. So none of these are new resources or hidden resources that we're sort of looking at. But we look at the CDC. We'll also look at the California Department of Public Health, and then also look at the Los Angeles County Department of Health. And those two departments really work hand in hand with one another. And we actually have seen, as the two separate departments have released guidance and recommendations at different times, we've actually had to defer ourselves to the LA County Department of Health. And so we've seen California Department of Health make announcements, and we've gotten very excited and began to make plans based on what the California Department of Health has said, and then also been mindful to wait for full confirmation and see if there's modifications and adjustments made by LA County. If there are stricter guidances within LA County, we recognize that we have to fall under the LA County Department of Health, and there's been instances where that has become the case. And so ultimately, from the CDC down to the California Department of Health and then to the LA County Department of Health, we are being mindful to stay up to date on those updates and follow their guidances. And it's been very helpful to just stay up to date and educate ourselves and do our due diligence so that we can make informed decisions for legacy. Also, I've mentioned in some of my emails and communications that we've also been in consultation with medical professionals, and just allowing them to take a look at our plan, provide feedback, make adjustments based on that feedback. We're educators, and that's what we seek to do, but we also now have to have an understanding and an appreciation for the virus and the threats that it has, and be thoughtful about a plan that will ensure safety for those who come into our building. So deferring, again, to those professionals who work with that, the infection on a regular basis, and making sure that we hear from them and being open and transparent with them and allowing them to speak into that reopening plan. So we're grateful for a number of staff members at Henry Mayo who have taken a look at our plan and provided that feedback, and personally been able to talk through those things with those doctors and nurses. And then also just reviewing other institutions, whether organizations or other educational institutions as well. There are dozens and dozens of reopening plans that we've been able to review, not just in California, but throughout the nation. Even though guidances will change depending on the state and the county, it's helpful to be able to think creatively and view what other people are, what other institutions are doing, and maybe apply some of those points that they're making as well, as they've also done their due diligence. In terms of what the steps that we're taking for ensuring a healthy and safe environment, the first one is physical distancing, and some of these words that we had never used prior to COVID-19 are now commonplace. So even though you're probably very familiar with physical distancing, I just want to walk through what that will look like at a legacy middle school level. So the first point that I would say with physical distancing is that all of our classrooms are being restructured to promote physical distancing. Now, I will say that the benefit to the size of our classes right now at the middle school have always been a smaller class size than what you're used to at the elementary. So the physical distancing challenge is much less actually at the middle school because our class sizes have always been 15, 16 students. And so now it's just a matter of reconfiguring the desks to promote physical distancing. And so I'm encouraged to see that with the enrollment that we have, we are able to accomplish that very easily. In the case that there would be a challenge with physical distancing, as has been our practice at the elementary school, we would install plexiglass to ensure that students are safe where physical distancing cannot be achieved. Lastly, you'll see signs and markers throughout our campus at the middle school that are helpful reminders, visual reminders for our students to maintain that physical distancing, to wash their hands when they leave the bathroom, use the hand sanitizer, the no-touch hand sanitizer that's in the classroom. You know, we all need those reminders and the visuals that will be placed throughout the hallway, in the classrooms, in the bathrooms, the markers that are on the hall. All of those will be helpful to remind our 7th and 8th graders, and even our staff too, of those important reminders. Our lunch area, our playground, will be able to promote physical distancing as our 7th graders who are in childcare would go out for their recess on the playground at a particular time, and then if the 8th graders who are here for childcare would go out. And even during the reopening plan, our schedule at the middle school, I'll just say, has been very, very conducive to a lot of these challenges that we may look at, with our 7th and 8th graders already having different brunch times or recess times built into their schedule. And a lot of the class periods would have a little bit of a delay between the 7th graders being released and the 8th graders being released from a class period. So that staggered schedule is already sort of embedded into the middle school schedule, which allows for the flow of traffic even in the hallways and at the lockers that help us reach that desired physical distancing. So at the lunch tables, there'll be spots marked off that promote the physical distancing, and then on the playground, for students who are here for childcare, we'll have the entire playground dedicated to just that middle school time, which will help promote physical distancing. When we return, we've grouped our lockers to be considerate of this physical distancing concern. So the lockers have been assigned with grade level and school schedule all in mind, and then each cluster of lockers have been given a designation of a group so that we can know that the A group will only have a certain number of students at the lockers at a time, and the B group and the C group, and then as those students walk into the classroom, more students from that group will be allowed to then go to their lockers, and we'll be able to stagger, as I said, the use of the lockers and control that flow. I will mention later on how we will view the middle school building during DLP, but just in terms of thinking through physical distancing for our reopening when that happens, and then also during our DLP 2.0. Cleaning and disinfecting. Touch points in the classroom will be cleaned regularly. Desks, stools, chairs, our handles on the doors. We're mindful. We've gone through a number of trainings with our staff this week, just reinforcing the need to really own your space as a teacher and be responsible for the health and safety of the student in just a new way, as we've talked about now, not just their emotional safety and physical safety, but now also ensuring that the cleanliness of the room allows for students to remain safe. Shared items will either be eliminated or limited and then sanitized before and after each use. We want to make sure that if there is any sort of common items that are shared, we're being mindful of that and cleaning that. The playground and outdoor equipment will be sanitized between each stable group usage. So we will have elementary students out on the playground. We'll have middle school students out on the playground at separate times. But really what what's going to happen in between those stable groupings going out there is that the equipment will be sprayed down and cleaned and allowed to be sanitized before the next group comes out as well. The facility will continue to be cleaned daily, and then we'll continue with our monthly deep cleaning that we had prior to going on our stay-at-home order in March. We want to provide a very clean environment where the learning environment is not distracted by any sort of concern for germs being kept there for any sort of infection. But in addition to the cleanings, there's some personal practices that our staff and our students can participate in. So these healthy practices are personal healthy practices that will be promoted and reminded of for our students and our staff. And the first one is, obviously, if you're sick, we ask that you stay home. Now, obviously, now, in a lot of ways, thankfully, we have a greater sensitivity to that now that there is a greater concern to the infection of COVID-19 and the respect of others and their health and safety. But just being reminded that if your child's sick, if a staff member is not feeling well, we ask and require that that student or that staff member stay home, get rest. If it's head congestion or cold, stay home, get rest, recuperate, get healthy, and then come back. We will get you your missing work. If you are up to it and you can participate in DLP at home, hey, that's a wonderful bonus to DLP. So your child's feeling under the weather, but they don't want to miss school, well, go ahead and log on. And we have that already available to us, thankfully, through our DLP 2.0. Again, promoting frequent hand washing and utilizing the hand sanitizer. We've had hand sanitizer in the classroom and in main hallway areas, but we've replaced those now with the no-touch dispensers. So encouraging students, as they come into the classroom, you're going to wash your hands. For the middle school students, as you come into the middle school building, you're going to go over and wash your hands. And then as you transition throughout the building, utilizing the hand sanitizer. Covering your cough and your sneeze with a tissue. Obviously, we're going to talk about the face masks, but even just being mindful that, hey, when you cough and when you sneeze, that might actually have such a force with the face mask on that still droplets might enter out through the sides. So we want to still be in the practice of covering our cough, covering our sneeze. If a tissue's not available, we're going in the inside of our elbow. And not just assume, well, I have a mask on or I have a face covering shield on, so I can just sneeze and cough without being mindful of covering. We wouldn't want that to become a regular practice. So educating, all of this is a part of educating our students and really just being reminded that these new practices hopefully will become new habits for everyone at the middle school. And then again, just maintaining that physical distancing, whether you're in the hallway, you're out on the field, you're walking up to the middle school on the ramp, you're just mindful of keeping that distance of 6 feet when possible. And then avoiding handshakes, high fives, hugs, any sort of physical contact, and then refraining from touching your eyes or sticking your hands in your mouth. You would assume that at a junior high level that wouldn't need to be reminded, but you would be surprised for our junior high students what needs to be reminded. So moving on to our face coverings, and I just want to say that I know that the issue of face coverings is just a polarizing topic, and as we've referred to our resources and our guidelines and thought about how we would respond as an institution and in regards to face coverings, we've been thoughtful of everyone's safety and also the guidelines and restrictions that are in place that we have to abide by. So as a school in LA County, as a public place in LA County, we recognize that face coverings are required. So face coverings will be required in all common areas. I say that because there's going to be instances where there's outdoor play and those face coverings will not be required, but in all common areas within the building and making your way up from the parking lot to the ramp and into the building, those face coverings would be required. Face shields may be utilized during instruction, and so our teachers, as they go to teach your students during either DLP on site, maybe they're interacting with your student one-on-one, or they're teaching one of the elective classes, and they want to actually allow the students to be able to see their face. They have the option of having the face shield with the drape down to the chest, and that can be the alternative. But then when they're walking around in the common areas as well, they will have the face mask, the fabric face masks, or their face mask of choosing, whether that's one of those surgical medical grade face masks. They'll have those in the common areas as they walk around as well. So the face mask exemption for the student is available, but even in those instances, the student with the exemption for the face mask would be required to wear the face covering shield with the drape covered over as well. And we're going to make sure that students are having proper face covering usage, where it's covering the whole mouth and the nose. It is a challenge as you talk longer, those tend to shift down. So reminding students to just keep it above your mouth and above your nose as well, just so that we can ensure that the point of the face covering is being used and effective. So in terms of our face masks, we want to make sure that they're being utilized inside, but as I said earlier, during outdoor play, there's guidance and freedom for students to not be required to wear that face covering as they exert themselves in outdoor play, and understanding that they're continuing to maintain that physical distancing outside. Moving on to what we've done to our facilities and how we're approaching that. The lockers during DLP will not be utilized. So we have a plan for how the lockers will be utilized when we reopen and students are using that, but the lockers will not be utilized during DLP. So for the students coming for childcare and having their classes here on campus, they'll bring their items that are necessary, whether that's their Chromebook and their books. They'll bring those, they'll have them on their person, and they will keep them with them at all times. The playground, we're going to allow students to be out on the playground and really limit the amount of shared items used out on the playground as well. And drinking fountains, we have several of those water bottle fillers with the drinking fountain attached, and we are going to cover the drinking fountain portion of that and encourage every student to bring a reusable water bottle that they can fill so they can stay hydrated, and they're not in any sort of situation where they would need to not be able to be using the water bottle filler. So it's really important that students remember to bring their reusable water bottles so they can fill that with our bottle fillers in the hallways and outside. And then we're currently having our air conditioning service and new filters put in so that we create a good ventilation in the classroom. And depending on weather, teachers will open up the windows and get fresh air circulating through the classrooms. Obviously, right now, with the heat being what it is and the air quality being what it is, we would encourage and have those teachers keep those windows closed and let the air conditioning kind of work through all of that with the filters. So our DLP 2.0. I want to talk a little bit about that. I will say just from the outset, a lot of the improvements that we've seen at the elementary level come from our experience with our middle school DLP. When we shifted to DLP in the spring and we created a schedule for our middle school students that made it possible for them to feel like they were still in 5 class periods every day, seeing their teachers, we were very pleased with how our middle school DLP operated. And that's a testimony to our wonderful staff up at the middle school and just being able to still connect with students over the Zoom sessions, providing that one-on-one time in their office hours, even at a distance, and creating that support that students didn't feel like they were falling through the cracks. Our teachers got very creative in ways to connect with their students. And so as we looked at the feedback from our teachers and our parents at the elementary level and ways to improve our DLP, if we were to be required to use it again, we looked and pulled ideas from our middle school DLP and put them into components of our DLP 2.0 for all school. And the plan was to place that DLP 2.0 on the shelf and maybe have it ready for flu season or the possibility of another stay-at-home order. And thankfully, we were ready to move into another DLP, even though it's not our preference, and it's a new part of the school year that presents different challenges than the end of the school year. We're very confident that the DLP 2.0 that we have at the middle school will meet our students' needs. So in terms of preparing for the day, even before students arrive, whether for Discovery Camp or for child care, there will be an app that the families will use, our staff will use, to allow for the health screening questions to be answered and acknowledged through the app. And we're going to talk about those questions in a moment. So that health checklist that will be utilized. And then also, parents will be asked to take their child's temperature at home first. Okay, we're going to take temperatures when your child arrives on campus, but having you check that temperature and being in the habit of checking the temperature and acknowledging your child's temperature is at a reasonable and appropriate and acceptable range really will save you a lot of trouble as opposed to having you drop off, drive away, and then we take the temperature and have to make a phone call while your child sits in isolation. So those health screening questions are going to flash up onto the screen. And they're the questions that have been submitted and distributed by the LA County Public Health and the CDC. And so these are questions that are going to be thoughtful. What we want to know about your student is whether there's been a temperature, whether there's been a fever, if there's been any sort of fever-reducing medication used, if there's any symptoms of coughing or shortness of breath, any signs of illness that should be concerned with just recently or currently. Have you come into contact with any confirmed cases? Have you traveled to any areas where there is a concern or there's a reason for quarantine, or that location has been on a list of areas that require a quarantine? Most of those questions families will be able to acknowledge. And for those families who went through and did our algebra camp or our English camp, you're familiar with these questions already. And it's encouraging, I will say, for when we're talking about returning to campus and instituting a lot of these protocols, it's encouraging to know that we have already rolled out in some fashion a return to campus with our Discovery Camp at the elementary level, with our readiness camps, and then at the middle school level as well. So we feel very confident with a lot of these protocols and practices already in place. So preparing for the day, health screening, and temperature. And then next, we would ask that you would consider with us this child care component. And I've been really, really encouraged by the response, as I stated in the email over this past weekend. We want to be considerate and thoughtful to the families who have a real need for child care, and it would be prohibitive for their child to participate in any type of schooling without the help of childcare. So I know that right now, all of our students are going to be starting the school year off with distance learning, and some of our students will be doing that distance learning at home because they have the ability to do that with their family dynamic, with a parent, or maybe they've arranged for other childcare in the home, or those students who need to take advantage of our needs-based childcare here at Legacy. So arriving for school starts at 7:45, and so families dropping off for childcare can do so as early as 7:30. We're encouraging families to utilize the car line, so our administrative team will be out there opening the doors and directing students to go to the appropriate entrance and get temperature checked there, and then go right into that learning environment where for the students at the middle school, that learning environment in childcare will be located in the MPR. So the students will come, you will bring your Chromebook with you, and that's the device that will be required for all students to use 4th grade through 8th grade. I know that there's been some questions about students utilizing other laptops. We have downloaded and installed all of the necessary components into the Chromebooks, and there's certain filters and certain programs that are on there that'll make the learning process much smoother. So students, even though they might have a MacBook at home, they will be required to use the school-issued Chromebook. Because as we troubleshoot issues, as maybe there's a problem that the camera's not working or my microphone's not working, and you bring those in, Mr. Estrella can troubleshoot that either over Zoom or having you bring that device in and work through that. So as the child care is being in the NPR and supervised by Mrs. Bloom, she's going to be familiar with the Chromebooks and being able to help your students, and then Mr. A will be on campus as well, supporting the students and making sure that everyone's able to learn and not have any sort of hiccups with the technology. The counselors, as you can see, the counselors will be the ones outside supervising at that time and helping the students remember to be maintaining that physical distancing. In terms of other notes for our child care, the schedule and really the entire day will follow the daily schedule of our DLP 2.0. So as students come in, they're coming into the NPR, they're coming into childcare, but what they're coming into is a learning environment. They're coming into a time where it's going to be direct instruction from the teacher, assignments from the teacher, and then any independent work they're going to complete in a classroom environment. So there's not going to be any sort of time for the students to be socializing with one another and playing games or doing something other than what the students are doing at home. We want this to be a focused, staff-directed time that follows the daily schedule of our DLP 2.0. For the students who are on campus for childcare, during that recess time, they will be permitted to head out to the back, spend some time with getting a snack or having some time just to get out their wiggles and stand up and stretch a little bit. And then two, for our child care families, there is the option for hot lunch. Our hot lunch provider will be providing a menu with take-and-go options. So the students who are here through the duration of the day for child care will have the option for our hot lunch, and we're reserving that for our child care families during DLP 2.0, and then when we open up for our full reopen, our lunch provider will open up to all families who are interested in taking the advantage of the take-and-go option through California Fresh Foods. So families who have signed up for childcare, you will get a confirmation email from the school in the coming days, along with a letter from California Fresh Food with some instructions for the take-and-go option. And then child care versus after school. Some families do need that after school offering, so following the dismissal of the school day, if you do need after school, that's a separate registration. You can go onto our app. I believe it was in the email that went out earlier this week with all the forms that need to be signed. If that's something that you need, go ahead and fill that out and let us know that you need after school as well. In terms of distance learning, there's not really a lot that's changed for our 8th graders moving into, our 7th graders going into 8th grade, but there are nuances for our 6th graders moving now into 7th grade that I just want them to be mindful of. Our daily schedule, previously we had made it so that there were 5 class periods each day. Friday ended a little bit earlier, but with anticipation of returning to campus, we wanted our middle school schedule to mirror a regular on-campus school day as much as possible. So you'll see that math and English meet every day for a shorter block, and then you'll also see that history and science have what's called a double period. It's a little bit of a longer class period, but it meets only every other day, whether on Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday, depending on the grade level. And that allows for a little bit more of a deeper discussion for both content, subject matter, and then in terms of our labs and our simulations in those subject matters, we are looking at incorporating the use of labs for the hands-on components and the simulations for our history classes, that the teachers will be notifying the class to invite those students onto campus for that particular subject matter lab or that particular subject matter simulation. For that day, you'll get a notification from that teacher that says, coming up, we're going to do a simulation or we're going to do a lab. We invite you to come for that time period and participate in that. Obviously, as I've stated, the class sizes are about 15 students per class, and our classrooms are going to be set up for physical distancing, so they would come, they would participate in the lab, and then they would return home. So our teachers will be communicating that, and with history and science, sharing that time block. They'll be working together to try to schedule those on the same day so that parents can drop off for that time block of history and science or science and history. So more information will come out, but there's certain dynamics of those subject matters that can't be accomplished through distance learning, and so we want to provide that opportunity for our science and our history. All of those subject matters do come prior to lunch. One item that I do want to mention is that you'll see that our Bible and our Spanish and our computers, our IMT, is built in within the school day. It's not later after lunch, and I'll talk a little bit about that, electives versus enrichment, and what falls under the Discovery Camp model, and what is part of the core instruction. So our daily schedule, we want it to be as close to what it would be when the students return. There'll be a few modifications, but overall it's pretty close. And so within those blocks, you'll certainly see your teachers, as they did in the spring, jump on, give some live instruction. They'll be utilizing some strategies where they'll incorporate some video, some pre-recorded lessons, and then and utilize some of the new technology. For our middle schoolers, they were using Zoom and using breakout rooms where they were breaking the students up into small groups and meeting with them during that class period. And so they'll continue to use that as well. So in terms of the live instruction and having teacher-led activities, that was something that they mastered in the spring, and we're excited to see them carry that on in the fall here. Discovery Camp. For our elementary, we're using our enrichment time block to operate in a more of a camp setting. For our middle school students, it will be our electives, not our enrichment classes. So our enrichment classes, one of the new components of middle school for a 7th grader would be that science and Spanish and Bible and computers are no longer considered enrichment in an effort grade model, but now those are actually considered GPA courses. So for those students coming into 7th grade, they have to really change how they think about Bible class or how they think about computer classes, because we've raised the bar and made that part of the consideration for GPA. And when we release our 7th grade and new parent orientation video, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in terms of what Discovery Camp is intended for, it's for our elective courses that meet, one option will meet twice a week, and then there's a second separate option that meets on Fridays. So that's our elective courses that the students probably came home from Shadow Day really excited about: digital photography or LCA TV or guitar, just some of those specialized courses that are within our elective program. Those locations will take place either in the classrooms at the middle school, because we know that they're structured for physical distancing, or they might take place down here in the MPR, utilizing the full campus as much as we can. So the question comes now, with the electives and being it's specialized, whether there's an on-campus component and an online component. Some of the classes that are going to be offered through the elective course will be very difficult and almost impossible to offer through the online component. And so we want to be mindful of that when we send out the elective form registration. We'll make note of which classes are really only able to be offered on campus. And so we want to have a wide arrange as much as possible for students who are unable to come to campus for our Discovery Camp block, whether that's our electives and then also our PE offerings, which would also fall under that Discovery Camp model. We want to be thoughtful about offering something that they can participate in, and then when we return to full campus learning, those electives will continue for our students. And then next, just in terms of our Discovery Camp offerings, attendance, we want students to view this schedule for DLP as a real school day, a full school day. And so our teachers, our instructors, they'll be taking attendance, and they'll be monitoring student involvement and making sure that students are participating. With the electives, it's an effort-based grade, and so participation in attendance does speak into that effort grade for our students. Moving on to our next item, we want to discuss just for a moment what would the protocol be that in the event that there was a positive COVID-19 case. And this information is laid out in our reopening plan, but I just want to highlight how we would respond if there was this instance. And so first of all, we would identify that person and give them a surgical mask and take them and place them into our isolation room. Next, we would notify the family immediately to have them come pick up. We would give instructions to that family to seek medical attention and be directed by the medical professionals to take a test with making us aware of the results of the test. And then we would also identify others who have been exposed through close contact and then have them also isolated on campus and notify the parents to come pick up. And due to close contact, give separate instructions to those family members as well to be under the guidance and direction and care of a doctor in that medical team. And then next, we would make sure that there was a all-school notification. We just want families to be aware of what's happening on our campus. Obviously, there's certain personal information that cannot be shared, but even just notifying our families that we have had a COVID case. We would be, all the COVID cases are communicated with the Department of Public Health, and we would be following all of the guidelines laid out by those governing authorities. And then next, just go ahead and look at what close contact looks like. How is close contact defined? And close contact is defined in really just two different ways. First of all, it would be defined by the CDC and LA County. This is not Legacy's definition of close contact, but close contact would be an individual who was within 6 feet, so not in that physical distancing parameters, with an infected person for more than 15 minutes while not wearing a mask. And that would be both parties not wearing a mask. So if you think for a moment of the structure and framework that we have created at Legacy, where we are requiring masks in class, in common areas, walking throughout our campus, there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for a student or a staff member to be in close contact as defined by CDC and other public health officials because we're covering as we are mandated to do. And so in terms of identifying those areas where perhaps there would be close contact opportunities, that would be during our brunch time and then any sort of time outside where there's perhaps PE or outside physical play, and then that falls back on our staff and our personal responsibility of our students to continue maintaining that physical distancing and in PE doing exercises and games and things that fall under more of a skills-based discipline where they can have more physical distancing accomplished. The other definition for close contact that the CDC and Department of Health officials define is that an individual who has had unprotected contact with an infected person's bodily fluids, and so being coughed on or sneezed on, sharing utensils, and and being without a mask in those instances too. I think it is helpful to just recognize that's why we want to be mindful of how to properly cough and sneeze into our elbow or into a tissue, because there is that reality that a sneeze and the force of a cough could droplets could come through the mask. But again, that's someone maybe wearing a mask and the droplets coming through the mask, and then the person who's with them within 6 feet, not maintaining that physical distancing, is not wearing a mask. So again, with the protocols and the requirements in place that we have, we really think that we can be encouraged that there's going to be limited opportunities for close contact to happen. And we want to be mindful of students maybe going in a carpool with another family, and then you get into the car together, and it's a personal decision to take the mask off in the car. Those are questions that perhaps we might ask a student that we've identified as having a fever or symptoms of COVID-19. Hey, do you travel to school with anybody else? Have you been in close contact by definition with anyone, perhaps even outside of Legacy, but they're a Legacy family and student? We would want to make that identification as we talk to the student and the family of the infected person. So just being thoughtful about our close contact and knowing how that's defined and acting appropriately. So next, we're going to just take a moment and look at what is the progress of our reopening and the waiver process. And I think all of you are aware that the California Department of Health has released guidance for the waiver process, and then LA County Department of Public Health has stated that based on California Department of Health's recommendations for a certain number, a threshold of a number of cases per 100,000 residents in a county, LA County has not only reached that threshold, but gone above that. So they have withheld the application process for schools, elementary schools in LA County right now. And what they have stated very clearly is that when the waiver application does become available, which we are continuing to pray and hope that will come very soon, that would apply to pre-K to 6th grade students. And they've been very clear in their communication, even for middle schools that serve 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in their middle school, that in those cases, 6th grade would be permitted to return to campus under the waiver, but 7th and 8th would continue to be on distance learning. Now, I don't make those recommendations. I don't make those regulations. I don't personally understand those regulations, but I want to just communicate that we will continue to provide the very best distance learning plan that we are able to do, seeking to be faithful to those guiding principles and seeking to meet the needs of our students and remain prayerful that we will soon be able to return to campus as soon as possible. In terms of other items to be made aware of is just in terms of scheduling changes. So you'll see, as I mentioned, the schedule for the DLP mirrors very closely the schedule that would be for a regular on-campus, but there will be some nuances in new class periods. Primarily, our study halls will be re-implemented into the schedule, and some of our classes will be moved around. But overall, the structure and the skeleton of the schedule will stay the same, because we want that to be a very seamless transition to the point that we can say we find out on one day and immediately following the next day we can return to campus. I want to talk about our dress code and how we're going to approach that at the middle school, because it is a little bit of a different dynamic for our middle school students. And this is really based on our experience last year. What we're going to do for our middle school students who are off campus doing distance learning at home, during PE days, we're going to require them to wear their PE shirt. What we've found with our middle school students, and bless their heart, it's just the age that they're in. They need all the help that they can get to be reminded that they are in school. They are in a classroom setting, even though they might be sitting at their kitchen table or in their bedroom or wherever they might be viewing the Zoom and accomplishing their work. And oftentimes it's difficult for a teenager to get into that mindset, to get game ready. And so our students this last spring for some of our classes were required just to have your polo on or have your legacy sweatshirt on. Show that you're ready. Put on the uniform and be ready for class. And so we saw that some students had difficulty getting ready and getting into that mode of being ready for class. So on PE days, students off campus will be required to wear their PE shirt, and then on non-PE days, they'll be required to wear their polo for the instruction time on distance learning. And then on Friday, we've created a special shirt that we're going to distribute to all of our middle school that they can wear until we return back to campus on Fridays. They can wear that shirt on Fridays as a special little a bonus for being a middle schooler. And then when we return, we'll have our regular Uganda t-shirt drawing contest, and then they'll be able to wear their Uganda shirts on Fridays as well. So that's a little bit of how we're going to structure the dress code. And when it says off campus, it's because when the students come onto campus for electives, or if they come to childcare, they would have the free dress guidelines. So we want to create clear delineations as students come to campus for Discovery Camp, that they're not in uniform, they're not coming to school for class, they're coming to school for their enrichment camp, their elective camp, and so holding that full dress code uniform or full dress code PE uniform until we actually make that return to campus for our students. Next, moving into our helpful information that we have for you that we want to address right now would be our, let's see, I got to get this rolling. A little delayed here. Calendar events. Those will be assessed as the school year goes on. So you saw the master calendar be sent out earlier this week. Obviously, there are going to be events that are approaching that we may decide are not able to be kept on the schedule because of physical distancing and other restrictions that are in place. So we're going to be diligent about giving families notice to be able to let you know that either this event or that event is going to be held differently, either virtually like we've done tonight with our orientations, and how we're going to handle Meet Your Teacher Night is going to be communicated as well this weekend. Our supply pickup time, we will provide a time for families to come and get the supplies necessary to be ready for the first day of school. And then also there will be created a DLP student family agreement. So just, again, helping the students take some ownership, be ready for learning at a distance, learning through DLP 2.0. There's certain acknowledgments that we want the students to be thoughtful about, be reading through and saying, okay, I will agree to put my name and no other name on my Zoom profile. I will make sure that my background is not something that's shouldn't be on my Zoom. Different acknowledgments to maintain that the learning that happens in DLP 2.0 is effective and allows for the teachers to communicate effectively and the students to work as best they can. So that agreement will be sent. We'll allow the families to read that together. Students will sign that and return it as well. So we can have that agreement, student to teacher and family to school. And then our PE and elective opt-out. And we recognize that a number of students are involved in other physical activities. Maybe they're on a dance team or cheer team. Maybe they're on a traveling basketball team. And then families want to have the opportunity to maybe utilize that time for added study, or there's some tutoring that needs to be done. And so if an opt-out for our elective time period or our PE block is something that you would like to request, go ahead and email myself or Ms. Zorchek, and we will get you that agreement, and we will make note of that in your file. Absences. Now moving into having multiple teachers throughout the day, different subject matters, some subject matters meeting on some days, some on others. The best way to notify our middle school is to email our front desk, Mrs. Gilbride, send her a quick email, and then she will be able to notify the teachers that the student's going to be absent for the duration of the day, or if it's a specific thing like a doctor's appointment, she'll be able to notify that particular teacher who's teaching, because all of our teachers are back in the classroom. She can pop in and say, hey, I got a notification that so-and-so is going to be absent for your class, and it doesn't disrupt your morning to be able to not have to email multiple teachers letting them know you have one central contact, and then Mrs. Gilbride can take it from there. So moving on to a few last items that I know might be on the minds of you as parents. Community service. Right now, we're going to hold on those requirements, and we're going to reevaluate what the requirement will be for community service when we return, and sort of gauge a reasonable amount of hours that would be appropriate for students given the time that they might have been off campus and unable really to go to places to serve because of restrictions and closures there. As we are coming off of the stay-at-home orders, we're reopening. There's transitions in all of that for different businesses and organizations, so we know that it might be difficult for students to accomplish their community service hours at the amount that it is with 24 on a regular school year. So we'll adjust that as well. Electives registration, I know that's probably on the minds of all of our students. When do I get to see the offerings and make my selections? That'll be emailed very soon this weekend, where the email will come through. It'll have some instructions for you as a family, the student, to make your top 3 selections. And then our front office will be able to go through that, catalog the submissions, when those were made, 8th grade versus 7th grade. We have some very popular classes that we do give priority to our 8th graders. If they weren't able to participate in that particular elective as a 7th grader, they would get priority as an 8th grader, just to give them an opportunity to be able to participate in that elective of their choice. So that'll be coming out. As you know, one of the highlights of the school year is how we start our school year with middle school with our WOW program. Students all the way down to kindergarten see the big pools outside and the competitions that we have here in the MPR, and just the bright t-shirts that the students wear, and how we structure that day for orientation in the morning, and then fun activities and team building and camaraderie in the afternoon. And there's really no way to accomplish that through our DLP 2.0. So for right now, what we've decided to do is to hold on our WOW week until we have the opportunity to return to campus. And upon that return, we will embed into those first 3 days a WOW week time, where there will still need to be in time for orientation, as students now are coming into the classroom and seeing their teachers face to face, and learning classroom dynamics and classroom expectations, and getting oriented with the flow of the school day, and being able to meet all of their teachers and hear from them, and then for us to provide some activities and team building opportunities, obviously with physical distancing in mind, and getting creative about those activities, but providing that fun atmosphere for our students where they feel part of a community up at the middle school. So we're excited about what WOW Week will look like when that time is appropriate. And then in terms of teacher support, teacher questions, teacher help for students with one-on-ones, each of the teachers, as they communicate their syllabus and let you know about how their room and their class will be structured, they'll be communicating their specific office hours to where they can meet with the needs of the students and be able to be available for any questions. And then moving on to just an opportunity to close our time, I wanted to take a moment and share with you a letter that was written in recommendation for our reopening plan. As I've stated, we gave our reopening plan to Dr. Bud Lawrence, who is the chairman of the COVID task force at Henry Mayo, and allowed him to look over that. He actually was with our staff earlier this week, giving a training and an overview of COVID-19 as it pertains to educators, seeing the trends in our community, and just helping us understand as a staff those things that we need to keep in mind. It was very informative, very grateful to Dr. Lawrence and the other staff that took a look at our reopening plan. But I want to share with you his letter, and I want to read that together with you. It says, "To whom it may concern, we are in an unprecedented time. COVID-19 has truly placed our country, states, communities, and schools in an unenviable time, a position of struggling to make important decisions with little to no data to guide us. Through research and preparedness, community leaders work tirelessly to put their best foot forward with the safety of our greater population in mind. Matt Millett, the head of school at Legacy Christian Academy, and I would insert there our staff, our leadership team at Legacy is one of those community leaders, is an organization as a whole. He and his team have been thoughtful, diligent in preparing for in-class instruction for their students. They have produced a comprehensive reopening plan that truly addresses every element of safety related to the COVID-19 pandemic. From daily screening to face coverings and playground procedures, they have managed to create a safe environment conducive to on-campus learning. As the chairman of the Henry Mayo Newhall Hospital's COVID-19 task force, I was asked to review the Legacy Christian Academy preparedness plan. I was able to work closely with Mr. Millett to confirm that all aspects of student, family, teacher, and staff safety were fully addressed. I feel that the outcome of this hard work is detailed and complete, controlling as many variables as possible. Most of all, parents and students and faculty of Legacy Christian Academy wish to return to an on-campus experience. This is something that progressive reopening plan safely allows for. There are also appropriate contingencies in place to account for any possible COVID-related outcome. I certainly feel that Legacy Christian Academy has done their due diligence in making sure that their campus is ready to resume on-campus classes during the COVID-19 pandemic. Please accept this letter as a sign of my unwavering support for the Legacy Christian Academy's COVID-19 reopening plan." And then Bud Lawrence lists his credentials and signs his name. So overall, we are grateful for the insight and the support of Dr. Lawrence and other medical professionals. And I just want to say that the desire to have our students back on campus is not only just a selfish a desire to be able to be with our students that we love and appreciate. It's also understanding that we know how effective students learn while in the classroom. And we are awaiting that time that our students can return to campus. And we're thankful for the opportunity to have our child care and then also our Discovery Camp on campus. And we're grateful for those opportunities. And I hope that tonight, as we've talked through these things, it's been helpful to you to think through how has COVID-19 impacted Legacy Christian Academy specifically, and then for each family, their student. As you think about returning, we want to be an avenue and a pathway to help your family and your student return to some normalcy as we welcome back our students first through DLP 2.0 and then also eventually through our reopening plan. We're going to transition now to a time where we're going to open up the chat. We're going to answer some questions. You're going to see the logo come up on your screen. Give us a few moments to switch over and allow for questions to be opened up, and then I'll return and answer those questions with the time that we have remaining. All right, well, thank you for that time. Thank you for that time. We have the chat open now on our YouTube Live page. And if you don't see the chat open, go ahead and refresh your browser and you'll see it open up. And any questions that we might have, we want to make those available to you. School pictures are on the calendar. How will that be done? We're actually going to hold on school pictures until we reopen our school. So we'll be notifying families of that. You get a little bit of a preview on that, but we're going to wait on our school pictures until we return. Can you talk more about Discovery Camp and how that will work? Yeah, so as I stated with our elective offerings, those will fall under the Discovery Camp time block, and then also our PE offerings, those will fall under our Discovery Camp as well. So twice a week you'll see one set of electives as an option. Twice a week you'll see the PE and PE, physical education, nutrition option, and then on Fridays a separate elective option as well. And those offerings, the electives and the PE options, will come this weekend for students to sign up. Will middle school students be required to come on campus for 2 hours a day? Again, there is the option to opt out of the PE offering and the elective offering for a family who wants to use that time for other means of either sports training or tutoring. So it's not required for the students to participate because the bulk of the day, the regular core instruction has already been completed in our DLP before lunch. Will any sports be offered this fall? Mr. Moss has been working with the other athletic directors in the Santa Clarita Valley within our league, and they have pushed back the start of any sort of competitions until November. And even at that, they're evaluating the guidance that's coming out. Sports and practices fall under a different guidance. They are allowing for youth sports to meet with skills training and individual practices where physical distancing is accomplished. And so within our PE offering, we are exploring some of those skills-based offerings that may align with the regular fall sports schedule, but it wouldn't be under the regular team until we're allowed to compete with other schools. When school does reopen, how many students will be in each class? Will it be limited in any way? As I stated, we have the benefit of having smaller class sizes as a part of our middle school already. So if you know our middle school campus, we have those 4 classrooms, and we've placed as many as 22 students in there to learn. And so right now our class sizes are 15 or 13 or 12, depending on how classes are laid out. I know that the math groupings were sent out earlier for our 7th graders, so you can see the number of students that would be in a classroom at that time. So we're very comfortable and confident with the number of students in a class, with the size of our classes, knowing that we can very easily physical distance in those classes with the enrollment that we have. If you sign up for an elective Discovery Camp and can't make it to school sometime, is that okay? Yes. Again, these are elective, effort-based. It's not going to be counted toward attendance or an absence or any sort of issue. Obviously, communication is always helpful, so if there's a reason for the student to not come other than sickness, it would just be probably helpful to let Mrs. Gilbride know. That way an instructor who's conducting the class isn't perhaps waiting for your student to arrive if they're regularly attending. Could you please clarify the dress code for students on campus during the day for childcare? So for childcare students, they're going to fall under the free dress code guidelines. So we're just, for our elementary students during childcare and Discovery Camp, and then our middle school students during childcare and Discovery Camp, we're allowing them to be in free dress, following the free dress guidelines. So students need to be mindful of that in terms of what's an appropriate free dress. But while they're here on campus, free dress will be acceptable. And then for the students who are on the Zooms in home, just to help them get mentally prepared and in the zone for learning, those students will have either the PE uniform on the PE day or the polo during class time on the non-PE day. Will a recap be sent out? Where did you know what? A question came in about my socks. I actually don't know where I've gotten my socks. I have so many different colorful socks, and I will say that I'm holding my bow ties until we return to campus. When we return to campus, I'm throwing those bow ties on, and we're gonna get after it, along with all the students getting their uniforms on. But can't really tell you where I got my socks. But thanks for that question. Will each student have a Chromebook? Yes. Each student will have a Chromebook that they will be able to take home and use, and those will be the laptops that they'll be required to use while in class, whether on campus or at home. So I am seeing a blank screen, which is encouraging, hopefully meaning that I've answered all the questions. I will say that if there's any questions that come into mind, we want to direct those questions to info@legacy-christian.com, and that question will be appropriately answered for the right person overseeing that area of DLP 2.0, childcare, and Discovery Camp. So thank you again for tuning in. Reminder for our new families and for our 7th grade families, we will be presenting myself, Ms. Zorchek, Mr. Moss, and Mr. Anthony, our regular new middle school parent orientation with a little bit more detail so you can prepare for even when you return to on campus some of the unique qualities and components of our middle school program. And then you'll hear from each of the 7th grade teachers in a pre-recorded video where they go over their guidelines, their syllabus, their expectations, and get to see them as well. So we'll ask you to watch that with your students. Regularly, we have the student and parent come to a new parent orientation for our middle school, but obviously unable to do that. Wanted to get to the COVID-19 information, and then also want to still provide that for our new families. So thank you so very much. Anyone who happened to miss this, this will be available on our YouTube page over the next couple days as well. So thank you. Look forward to a wonderful school year, and have a great night.